Greetings, my dear viewers. It is I, Drayon, and welcome back to a raw guide to Homebrewery. We're back again with the 100 subscriber special, and we are on part 4, Magic Item Creation. This can be found in the Dungeon Master's Guide on page 284. Dungeon Master's Guide. I think I slurred that. My apologies. Anyway, 284. We have a lot to cover. Well, not exactly. Much like with spells, there is not really much to cover, except for how powerful a spell is. And really, that's about it. That's all you have to think about when creating your magic items, is how powerful they are. So for example, a common magic item wouldn't have any bonuses added onto it. No attack rolls get... The attack rolls don't get any bonuses, the damage rolls don't get any bonuses, nothing. And at best, you'll be using a first level spell in your magic item. So... yeah, that's really all you need to know with magic items, is to make sure you have the right power level for them. Don't do something spectacular with common magic items, and make sure it's reasonable with a legendary magic item. So... attunement. That's another thing that we can go over for balancing. According to the book, if having all the characters in a party pass an item around to gain its lasting benefits would be disruptive, the item should require attunement. If the magic item grants a bonus that other items also grant, it's a good idea to require attunement so that characters don't try to collect too many of those items. We actually saw an example of this when we did the Tech Priest build a while back. Some of the replicant magic items, the Ring of Protection and the Cloak of Protection, had very similar benefits, but one of them had attunement. I think it was the Cloak, and that was because of something like this. It had similar benefits, and if you were to pass it around to other characters, they would be able to get those bonuses. So having attunement actually makes sense for some of these magical items. Another thing that you can probably do with magic items, and this is on page 143 of the Dungeon Master's Guide, is minor properties and quirks. So, say the item never gets dirty. Number 5 on the minor properties table. Or harmonious. Attuning this item only takes 1 minute. Pretty neat stuff. Some of these are actually pretty useful and do actually spice up some of the more mundane magic items, such as a +1 sword or or just an ordinary item. Having an ordinary item gain one of these minor properties could make it a common magic item. Like, say, strange material. The item was created from a material that is bizarre given its purpose. Its durability is unaffected. Very interesting. You also have quirks, such as loud. The item makes a loud sound, such as a clang, a shout, or a resonating gong when used. I would say that would be something useful for, like, a set of keys. Have it be a cursed item. Try to use the keys and they suddenly shout. That would be hilarious. But you could use these quirks as part of your magic items to make them a little bit more interesting. Like number 16 on the minor priorities table, War Leader. The bearer can use an action to cause his or her voice to carry clearly for up to 300 feet until the end of the bearer's next turn. I think this would be interesting for a set of instruments. Have this with some form of intimidation check while using these instruments. You could intimidate an opposing army up to that 300 feet. Or be able to shout out at the king sitting upon the balcony of his castle on the other side of a moat. That's cool. Okay, so let's talk about that extra damage. I want to go ahead and give you an example of a magic item that I created that should be able to help you create your own magic items. The item I use is a magical lance. I didn't have a spectacular name for it, I just went with magical lance. As you know, a lance does 1d12 piercing damage. This is an average of 6.5. In my last video on... before I get into that, if you recall from earlier, I have the magic item rarity, and that a uncommon magic item, according to that table, would use a maximum of a 3rd level spell. In my last video on spells, we had the table that went over spell damage, and that a 3rd level spell did 5d10 damage. I thought that was a little bit overpowered. I think that's a little bit overpowered in my opinion, for a magical item. So, what I did was take 3rd level, 2nd level, 1st level, and cantrip, added them together, and divided them by 4 to get an average, which ended up being an average of 15 damage. So with that in mind, an extra amount of damage for a lance would have to be roughly 8, taking the lance's damage from the total damage that I calculated. So with this magical lance, 1d12 piercing damage with an additional 2d6 radiant damage, which is technically 7 damage. So I did the attack and damage bonus of +1, which is something that we got from the bonus table from our magic item power, which honestly makes sense. So that's roughly what I did. Now, if you're wondering how I got the radiant damage, surely I would have had some form of inspiration for this, and technically I did. I got some inspiration from Starlight Heart, the Buso Renkin that the main character from the anime Buso Renkin used, which, by the way, is a really good anime. I haven't read the manga, but I would assume it is just as good. I would recommend watching it. But other than that, I really don't have much to go off of for a magic item. There's so much to do, and I didn't want to make a legendary item or even an artifact without showing you the basics. So I just took inspiration from Busorenkin and made a somewhat weaker magic item to the best of my abilities. I'm rambling because I don't really know how to do anything else. I do apologize for that. But, you know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and stop my rambling. That is the tutorial that I have for you on magic item creation. I do hope that you enjoyed. And with that being said, this has been Drehan, and I am offline.